Something unusual happens less than 2 minutes into this hearing. The debate stops being about children, immigration, or even the secretary sitting at the witness table. It becomes a fight over something politicians value almost as much as winning elections: the right to define the story before the public does. Rosa DeLauro isn't simply presenting an argument, she's trying to establish a moral baseline that everything else in the hearing will be measured against. Markwayne Mullin recognizes that immediately, which explains why he interrupts before the discussion can move on. Once a narrative hardens in a hearing like this, every later answer risks sounding like a defense instead of an explanation. That's why emotions escalate so quickly. The real contest isn't over facts alone. It's over who gets to decide which facts matter most. And as this confrontation continues, watch what happens whenever one side believes the other is about to score a political advantage. Those moments reveal far more than the prepared statements ever could.
I do appreciate, Mr. Secretary, your concern about the lost children, but I also want to remind people that let's not forget what was a Trump administration policy initiated by Stephen Miller, which was to let us separate children from their families at the border, because this would be a way to curtail or to stop immigration. Separating children from their families, how to hurt them the most. I asked and had a phone conversation with Secretary Azar at the time. I know I was in my living room with my 2-year-old grandson on my lap trying to have this conversation, and I asked him if there was a way in which he had a list of how you could reunite children with their families, and he assured me that we did. You know, when you take your clothes to the cleaners, they give you a tag, and you then go back and you retrieve your clothes. When you get luggage, you go and get your luggage is returned. Well, quite
I wish the
frankly,
Biden administration would have done that.
Let me just say this to you, sir. Again, it is my time. 3,900 children were separated from their families.
450,000 kids were lost during the Biden administration. You didn't say a word about it.
Mr. Secretary, do not interrupt.
Don't you point your finger at me. Don't
I
be a
will
hypocrite.
point my finger
Don't you be
at
a hypocrite
you.
then. Then you be as you should be as upset about the 450,000 kids that were lost. You didn't say a word about it. For 4 years, you never said a word.
Mr. Secretary.
Could you put him in his place for
Don't yell at me.
You should be put in your place.
Mr. Secretary, if you would like 4 minutes for a closing statement when everybody's done, I'll give you that. But while members are on their 8 minutes, I need them to have their 8 minutes.
I started my comments.
I appreciate that. My issue is that they say this for sound bites, and I'm not going to let them say something
What did
like
you
that
do
that's not
just
true.
recently for sound bites? I sympathize with the 400.
We are going to have something resembling order here. The time is the ranking members. If you would like to respond later on, there are methods to do that, but it's not a who can talk louder into the mic.
It's not.
So, you are recognized.
Thank you very much.
I will not let her
Mr.
sit there and lie and accuse something this ridiculous.
You
Well,
know-
this is the legislative branch, and it's my hearing, and so I'm going to try to some extent to control it moderately.
And do
Thank you.
not accuse me of lying.
Once the volume comes down, it's tempting to think the hearing has returned to policy. In reality, this is where the conflict becomes more revealing. Notice how the conversation expands from immigration to TSA funding, labor protections, cybersecurity, and FEMA. On the surface, these are separate issues, but politically they're connected by a single question: what should government prioritize when resources, authority, and public trust are all under pressure? That's why neither side wants to concede even a small point. In Washington, admitting weakness on one issue can quickly become evidence against you on another. The debate isn't just about today's budget decisions, it's about establishing which governing philosophy deserves public confidence. And before we get to the next exchange, if you enjoy political documentaries that go beyond the headlines and connect the dots behind these confrontations, subscribe to The Rebuttal. Every week, we unpack the stories beneath the political theater that most people never stop to examine. Because the next confrontation doesn't just continue the argument, it reveals how quickly policy debates can become battles over political memory itself.
Do not.
Then don't.
I do not. I appreciate, and I said to you at the outset, there's concern for children across the board. We care deeply about what's happening to children. And I went to the border and I watched children in those fenced-in places years ago and what was happening to them. So I have a long history, Mr. Secretary, in this area. 3,900 kids were separated. Secretary Azar told me he had a way to reunite them. Many of them were not reunited till today. And I don't want you to answer this now. Please get back to us and tell us what you are doing with regard to the settlement in terms of this issue, which is out there, which your department needs to come close to. I'll make a statement to you again, but this is fact from the bill, Mr. Chairman. The bill that the Republicans have proposed for funding the Department of Homeland Security cuts cybersecurity budget by more than $250 million. It cuts the TSA by nearly $350 million. And the Trump administration is openly advocating for privatizing TSA while trying to eliminate their collective bargaining rights. We all know what happened earlier this year. TSA workers endured the longest government shutdown in history. There was a lot of discussion and talk invoked about the long lines and the use of leverage to force through a Homeland Security bill without any reforms to what were critical ICE and CBP reforms that were necessary, that the American people wanted and were clamoring for. They didn't want to continue to see masked marauders on their streets with just harassing people. Congress eventually passed my legislation that paid TSA workers, funded FEMA, CISA, Secret Service, and the Coast Guard. And today, and it took you 79 days on the Republican side to make that decision to pay these people instead of just talking about paying this. The administration continues to attempt to walk away from the collective bargaining agreement with TSA workers, something that the federal courts have now twice said is illegal. Indeed, your testimony frames the attempt to force over 200 smaller airports in this country into a new security structure as a setting. And quote, the TSA, this is in the testimony, the TSA is on the path to privatization. My question on this issue is, given all that the transportation security office did for us during a Republican shutdown, how can it be that the department's position is that TSA workers should not be granted the same basic labor protections as federal enforcement officers? How can it be that your priority is to have them work for the lowest bidder, where the wages and the benefits of these workers will unquestionably be lower?
One of the easiest details to miss is what never actually gets resolved here. DeLauro asks why TSA employees shouldn't receive the same labor protections as other federal officers. Mullin responds by arguing Democrats repeatedly voted to shut the government down. Whether viewers agree with either position almost becomes secondary, because the conversation has shifted onto entirely different ground. This is one of Washington's oldest negotiating strategies. When answering the question directly carries political risk, redefine the battlefield. Suddenly the debate isn't about labor protections anymore. It's about who deserves blame for decisions made years earlier. That's effective politics because people naturally compare competing accusations instead of noticing the original question has been left behind. It's also why committee hearings can feel simultaneously dramatic and unsatisfying. The louder the argument becomes, the easier it is for the central issue to disappear beneath it.
Well, actually, it was the Democrats that voted every time to shut them down. The Republicans voted every time to open them up.
Pass.
So
just give me
we didn't shut them down. You shut them down.
Answer my question.
I did.
What are you doing? Why are you moving?
Ma'am, I answered your question. You were the one that shut them down. The Democrats shut down. How many times did you vote to shut them down?
Why? You know, these people come to us to get funding for the work that they do, and we.
I'm actually factually correct. I'm factually correct. You voted to shut them down. Republicans voted to open them over and over and over again. Your vote clearly stated that you voted to shut us down. It wasn't until it became popular, and then, by the way, ICE agents came there and helped bring the lines down. The same people that you also kept shut down for 115 days. I'm answering the question.
No, you.
I thought you said you answered it. The floor is hers.
My dear.
Actually, I gave it to her. You know, there is a chairman of a committee. That's me. I gave it back to her.
This tells
She's
you
got it.
something about who these folks are. And
You have
everybody
another
on
question,
this
Madam
panel.
Ranking
Well,
Member.
yeah, no, I do, but I didn't get an answer to a question.
So the
How
record
can
will
it
so
be?
reflect.
Thank
Please
you.
ask your next
Okay,
question.
and I will.
By the end of the hearing, the shouting has faded, but the underlying tension hasn't. In fact, it becomes even more apparent. DeLauro asks for simple answers about FEMA, disaster funding, and deaths in custody. The administration emphasizes ongoing reviews, reforms, and future updates. Both approaches are politically understandable. One side wants definitive commitments that can be judged later. The other wants enough flexibility to avoid making promises before policy decisions are finalized. That tension exists in almost every oversight hearing, yet it rarely receives much attention. Congress is designed to demand certainty, while executive agencies often operate by preserving options until decisions are complete. When those two incentives collide, frustration is almost inevitable. The question this hearing leaves behind isn't simply who won the argument. It's whether oversight hearings still function primarily as fact-finding exercises, or whether they have increasingly become contests to shape tomorrow's headlines before tomorrow even arrives.
This has to do with FEMA. Simple question. And I want to start where I left off with Secretary Noem last year. FEMA. Simple yes or no. Do you support eliminating FEMA? Do you support eliminating FEMA?
There's portions of FEMA that
Do
need
you
to be back to the
support
state.
eliminating
There's
FEMA?
no yes or no question on that. There's
Do you
portions that need to go back to
support
the state.
eliminating FEMA?
The record will reflect the response.
Is
The record will reflect the
that
response.
he
Is there another
supports
question?
it. Yeah, because let me just say, in April of 2025, the Trump administration prematurely, I'm glad we got that answer, because the poor gentleman who came before, it may have been with you, Mr. Chairman, that came before our committee, and I asked him this question, and he said, because Secretary Noem said, yes, she and the president wanted to eliminate FEMA. The gentleman said that he said it should be reformed, and the next day he was fired. Let it show that the secretary believes that we should shut FEMA down.
I never
April
said
2025,
that.
the
Mr.
administration.
Chairman, I never said that.
The administration prematurely,
The record will
unlawfully
reflect what you did and didn't
ended
say accurately.
FEMA's BRIC program. He intentionally halted roughly 2,000 active infrastructure and disaster mitigation projects across the country, including one in downtown New Haven, Connecticut. A coalition of 22 states and D.C. sued FEMA. A federal judge ruled in favor of the states in December, mandated that FEMA restore the over $3.6 billion and canceled funding. At the beginning of March, the judge had to order FEMA to comply with that ruling. 3 months ago, the day after you took over as secretary, FEMA formally announced a, quote, new and improved BRIC program. Yet, almost all of these communities are still waiting for their BRIC funding to be restored. Tell me, Mr. Secretary, when can communities with halted projects expect to receive their BRIC funding?
We actually restarted that when I first came in, and we did 24 or 25 of them. So
You've done 24 of the 25
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
2,000.
I mean, let me clarify that. So
Please.
2024 and 2025, they sent out the notice of notifications so everybody can now submit, and those projects that were already submitted for those times period will be
How many projects
reevaluated.
are there?
We can get you the details. on
Please,
that.
there were 2,000 that we started with were,
The Secretary also provided direction for 2026 to get the NOFOs out on that, and that'll come out sometime in September. The Secretary has done more to get that.
I do not need your, you do not need to.
I just want to make sure you're clear.
Well, please.
Okay.
Spare us, just give me the facts.
I
Just give
did.
me the numbers. Let me just conclude, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I'd like to work in an open and in a transparent way, because that BRIC funding for New Haven, Connecticut, which I probably will not get because I'm in a blue state, that the BRIC funding for New Haven, Connecticut is important, which is why we support the programs, bipartisan support for the BRIC program. So please, let's get the NOFOs out as quickly as possible and get the money to the communities that need them. My final comment to you is, I'd just like to go back a second. We need to go back to the issue of deaths in custody. It doesn't do anyone good to deflect, talk about what's happening in the criminal system in Illinois or in Oklahoma. What we need what we need, because 54 deaths are 54 in what is civil detention. We need a plan to address the fact that 54 people in your department they were in civil detention, it's not criminal detention, are dead. They should not be. We need to hear from you. I don't need an answer now. There is no time. I've taken an enormous amount of time. Get us a policy, a plan, in a timely fashion that says how are we going to deal with these issues. I yield back and I